This is part one of the OWASP top 10 for 2021. Number one on the list is broken authentication. Broken authentication is a vulnerability in a web application. It basically allows behaviors or access to resources that a developer or the product designer did not intend. So some common broken access control vulnerabilities in web applications would be an application that doesn't adhere to the principle of least privilege. As an example, you have an order status page that allows you to look up any order that you want, right? So the idea of least privilege here is that you should only be able to look up the orders for yourself as a customer, for an individual user, and not for anybody else. You could also have a vulnerability where a customer can see another customer's account page through what's known as an insecure direct object reference, so an IDOR. And essentially what that looks like is maybe you have a slash account status page with a parameter that is customer number equals 72 or 530. And if you already have a customer that knows their customer 735, they go, well, I'm just going to change that URL to customer number equals 32 and see if that pops up. And if you have a vulnerability of an IDOR, then that customer 735 will be able to see customer 32's information. So how do you avoid broken access control in your web application? So I'm going to go through the examples from the first part of this video. The first example talks about an application that has not adhered to the principle of least privilege for an application. And like the solution is pretty easy. Adhere to the principle of least privilege for your application. If your application doesn't need read-write access to every resource or every database, don't give it read-write access to every resource or database. For example was an IDOR, right? An insecure direct object reference. And the solution there is to ensure ownership of that record from the application perspective before a customer, a user, a client can access that record. We've given several examples of broken access control vulnerabilities and how to mitigate them. It's not an all-inclusive list. There are other vulnerabilities out there, or other examples of how these vulnerabilities can present themselves. It's not to solve every single one or enumerate every single one, but just to understand and take a step back as a developer and think, well, what other broken access control vulnerabilities could exist? I'll give you another one off the top of my head is not invalidating tokens or sessions when a user logs out. So you log out and that URL that allows you to see your status page or your order page, that should be invalidated as well, right? All those tokens should be invalidated. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer or do follow-up videos.